811 Myrtle Street, and that property, and I have a couple things over here for you to take a look at too, if you're interested. And the lower one is Sherwood House. So Myrtle Street is I wish I could zoom in on it for you. If you know where Huska Garage is. So Huska Garage, this building is 1 block east of Huska Garage. And so the property is designed for us, really. It was renovated in 2005. And let me do this. So I'm gonna just go into who we are, what we do, and okay, it's very strange for me to look at mine this way. I'm so sorry. I'm really like, my brain is like, what? And I think this is very weird that maybe I pulled up the wrong presentation. But so our mission really is to empower families to overcome homelessness. That is the goal of what we do. We've been doing this for 13 years with just a small program, and then we've grown it to, and I have some paper copies of different things for you. Oh, good. And so in 2012, we started sheltering families in churches. As you well know, we were here in the building of Trinity. Your faith community actually supports us over at Christ United Methodist Church. Rhoda is one of our leaders for that. And so we really focus on empowering them to overcome homelessness and then stay in housing. And so this whole project is just part of all the pieces of the puzzle. So we want to support sustainable self-sufficiency. That's what we want to do. And I loved in the service statement, Felicia, you said, dignity is huge in our work because we really want to do it in a dignified manner. And we provide, the reason we switched our name years ago with Front Family Hospitality, which was very descriptive of our overnight program, was because we realized we needed to be a network of support for our families and create a community of support around them. You are part of that community of support. And in that community of support, that means that we also connect them with all the different partners who can step in on the mental health side, the substance use side, the employment side, the take care of the child care, the education, all the pieces of the puzzle. So our vision really is what guides every day's work, which is every child deserves a home. And we just really believe that every kid whose parent calls in, who shows up at our front door, deserves to move back into housing and stay in housing. And hopefully we're a very, very slim chapter in their book of life so that they can move forward. And we really do envision a community where it's brief, rare, and non-recurring. So if they become homeless when they're 4, that they might not ever remember that in their future life, that this becomes just part of who they are. Yeah, I am really wondering if I pulled up the wrong one. I'm so sorry. I don't want to waste your time, but because we have to, my marketing person did one for me for Foothills and one of St. Paul, so they're the same. But so we began with this. You have been with us through the trajectory of growth. So we opened up our day center a couple days a week in 2014 at the Mennonite Fellowship. By 2019, we'd outgrown that space. But in 2015, I came on board, so it's been 10 years. And 10 years ago, I said, well, what if we could expand our reach to those who are unsheltered so that when we have an opening in shelter, we can bring them in? And what if we had families, and this is going to be really interesting in a minute, so what if we had families who could move into housing from their car? What if they never had to come to shelter, but how will we ever know who they are? What if the ones who are staying at Catholic, the families who are staying at Catholic Charities in the overflow, who get released to the wild every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, what if we had them come into day shelter and did case management with them? So we hired a full-time this tiny little agency hired me, and I said, let's blow this up. And so let's do bigger things. So we hired a case manager. We opened up 6 days a week at the Mennonite Fellowship. We started to really make an impact. We extended our reach from 4 families at a time to 14 families at a time. And we started to really make inroads with Catholic Charities, our trusted partner across town. So we then turned our name into Family Housing Network after we tried it on for size for a couple years. And then we got an incredible gift at Prospect and LeMay, right around the block here. And our board president said, I have this open space in the strip mall. Would you guys like it as your day center? I'll pay for the renovations. So Karen and Daniel Johnessy gave us this lovely gift. And then a year later, she called me and she said, Merry Christmas, I'm just giving you the building. And so I got Suite 103 and 105, and that really opened up our brains to say, what could we do with this leveraged asset? What could this look like? Meanwhile, there was this rumbling going on with my coordinators and stuff who started to say, COVID hit, and we then had to, many of you volunteered over at Foothills Unitarian Church, and for 14 months, Foothills Unitarian Church supported us there. We rotated our volunteers and all of our food and all those sorts of things. We were able to do shared training videos and make it really easy. But what the really cool part of that was, we shortened families' length of stay in homelessness. So their stay in shelter was shortened by another 10 days. And in the first quarter of COVID, we moved 17 families into housing, which is astronomical for us. We were like, wait, what? So it's COVID, we can't really do much, and yet we're moving families into housing where they can be safe. So we were like, okay, our coordinator's little idea, we created this little task force called Sustainability Task Force. And one of the things that we wanted to do was sustain our programming and lessen the trauma on the families, but sustain our volunteers from our faith communities and figure out how to do this in a centralized sort of way. So we test drove it for 14 months, it worked. And we were like, okay, so we can totally do this. So we've been looking at property ever since. Finally, now 9 months ago, I got 11 months ago, I got a phone call from Housing Catalyst. And they said, I had called them and said, if you ever meet a developer who is interested in working with someone like me, let me know. And my friend Michelle Christensen, who some of you might know, she, I think she goes to Trinity, and she called me about 2 or 3 weeks later and she said, I might be your person. I have a property at 811 East Myrtle, and I'd like you to go look at it. It's a failing property for us. It's got 17 people who live there who are highly compromised and need case management support. We don't have any money for case management support, so we need to move them into a different living situation, like permanent supportive housing in our community, and where we can support them. And I just can't do this. This property is an expensive undertaking. And I was like, okay, can I look? And my board president, Jim Zacharias, and I walked into it, and he got tears in his eyes, and he was like, this is it. They just renovated in 2020. They did $1 million renovation. It's completely retrofitted. It's completely handicap accessible with ramps, grab bars, everything. And it's even better than we dreamed. So we then started.
Am I right, it has sprinklers?
It's already set. It's got a huge commercial kitchen. It has 3 cooktops. It's got commercial refrigeration. It has some things that are older. It's a 65-year-old property. Used to be, it was owned by Columbine Care Systems owner. So Bob Stoner is the guy who used to own it, and it went from a nursing home to an assisted living, and then it went to a Martin Luther home. So through the years, and then Housing Catalyst bought it, and it turned into an SRO, which is a single room occupancy, like a bedroom that each person got. But they had done a great job of getting every one of those people a voucher. So all of the people that we just displaced, 17 people, they moved into 1-bedroom apartments. So it's better for them. And so it's just turned out like, sometimes and Rhoda can speak to this, sometimes I get to the end of my rope and I think, I just don't know if this is gonna work. And then I'm like, okay, I have this lovely overnight shelter manager who just says to me, let's just pray about this. Like she's like, we run an interfaith collaboration, let's just pray about this. And I'm like, okay, all right, we'll do this. We'll hand it over, and we hand it over, and it comes back as a blessing that couldn't have been expected. And so I've been wringing my hands and praying about this for 5 years, and it was perfect. And really, truly, it needs minimal things, like it needs a roof, which I can move in and we can replace the roof, right? That's not a big deal. It needs new boilers. The boilers work, they just need to be upgraded here in the next several years. It's gonna be fine. And so, but it's got a beautiful backyard, it's got everything. So the blessings continue for us because you were the start of the blessings for the funding. But then I will skip over this one until I show you this. This is the interior of the building. So if you can see it, you'll understand why I just think it's beyond my dream. Currently every family gets a Sunday school room. They share a bathroom down the hall. So small children in the middle of the night, they might just be in a diaper, but they gotta, wrap some around them, and they have to go down the hall and go to the bathroom, and their parents have to make sure that they're presentable, so if they run into anybody in the hallway, and it's really a discombobulating experience. Now here, what's amazing about this is they will come in the front door, it's already sprinkled, it's already completely up to fire code, it's completely up to residential code, it's zoned residential. Oh, wow. So I can have as many bodies in there as I want. And those of you who understand why the body count is important is because currently the fire department tells me I can only have 15 people. They don't care how many families, I can only have 15 people. So currently in my overnight program, I have 2 families of 6.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now I can only have 1 more family of 3, right? So Angela's desperately finding a family of 3, so guess who presents themselves? a family of 4, a family of 7, a family of 5. This is her past week. She's just like, I'm like, she goes, can I count babies as halves? And I said, you can't. The paranoid doesn't care. They think it's a whole body. And she was like, so it's making it really hard on us. And then we have volunteers who are like, well, why don't we only have 2 families of 6? You know, why is that? And we're like, because we only have 15 human capacity. So this will allow us to do 7 families. We currently only have up to 4 families, up to 15. We can do 7 families, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you notice, these rooms are really big here at the end, so we can do a single parent with kids, maybe a crib. So single parents, kids, and then these are all, bless you, double rooms. So parents in one room, kids in another, with a half bath between them. So to the hallway, there's just 2 doors. So kids can parents are right here, but they have privacy for the first time in our whole program. In 13 years, they've never had privacy from their children. And so this gives those couple parents, you know, the 2-parent families, the chance to actually sleep in a quiet room and their kids right across the bathroom from them. And they're all renovated as of 2020, so things are all up to code. The plumbing is, so some of you know at the day center I'm in now, we have plumbing issues almost every week at our place. This has complete plumbing redone. Everything is just lovely. I'm like, oh my gosh, here's the big commercial kitchen. So when they come in this fob entry, super secure location, the family will have a fob to let themselves in, to come in, dining, living, case managers right here where they get to see them. The staff break room is actually where the volunteers can bring in dinner. So we're not thinking we're gonna create a task force to help us figure out how many nights a week do we need our volunteers to bring dinner. Because asking them to cook for 30 people is really different than 15, right? So we're like, okay, it probably isn't every night. We have families, if we do our jobs right, they get a job in 30 days. They're working, they're running around school, they're doing their thing. So maybe we do destination dinners. Maybe we do a Sunday night wonderful dinner, and so that our volunteers can come in. Maybe we do 2, 3 nights, 4 nights a week. Maybe volunteers bring dessert one night. And you know, we just don't know. We just want to figure this out together. So this is all common area up in the front. So this is where we put our day staff. We have laundry back again for ourselves. And then the staff will be just sort of tucked in here. And then we have another big living room, which will also be our library area here. But the cool thing is too, that we have this really large backyard where families can barbecue and we're gonna have playground equipment. Parking is on the street side in front and in the alley in the back. Super secure location, tucked into a neighborhood. And from the front, you saw the building. It's just a small building with a big porch that we're gonna put rockers on. So it's just a really nice home environment for families to regain their foundation. Now, other tenements of the program, it's not gonna change. They're gonna be there from 90 to 120 days. The rhythm is still the same. They get a job in 30 days because we built out that program with the CSU School of Social Work. We know it works. It's why our numbers look like they do. Let's go, it doesn't let me go back. Let's see. So I'll share with you our numbers.
Maybe.
It's in here.
I have faith.
I know. And we were test driving this one as well, because I was like, oh, let's just make sure. So you see at the bottom of that, the roadmap that you all got, you see our numbers. So last year we served 106 families. So one thing that we know about Fort Collins is that we're not going to be able to, our partner Catholic Charities is not going to be able to increase their footprint. Their physical logistics of their building, they restrict them to what they do. They've increased their capacity as much as they possibly can. So what they're going to do is they're going to continue to serve 8 families in residential, 5 families in their overflow. And so we need to, so by us moving from 4 families to 7 families, that's going to increase our capacity as a community. But also what we meet as a leadership team every other week to talk about how we're going to shorten people staying in homelessness, because that's really how we're going to increase our pipeline of people. So we served 106 last year total. And so in all of our different programs. And so it's important for us to go, okay, so if we're serving them in let's pretend 50 or 45 days. 45 days is our average number of stay before they move into housing. What if we could get that down to 40? What if we can get it down to 35? Like, let's just start doing that, and then we can serve more families in these programs. Last year we served 347 people in our program. So that's important to note because at any point in time, it really does look like we do these, we call them a PID count, which is a point in time count. And we might have 200 family members in families with children who are homeless on that day, but we count over the year. So we recognize that over the year of homelessness that we need to make sure that we're tracking all those people. So you see we have big goals. So our goal is to raise $3 million. Why do we need $3 million? Because some of you read in my proposal, we're gonna buy 2 buildings. So 811 East Myrtle is the crown jewel, right? It is, for us, it is truly the crown jewel. It will serve 7 families at a time. They are selling it to us for $2.25 million. We already know that it's worth way more than that because they created it as what it is, and we're gonna keep it in the inventory to serve homeless people, that's why Housing Catalyst is willing to sell it to us for that price. The renovation alone was $1 million. So, and actually, now that we've had our building inspection, we just had a building inspector come through and he said, you need a new roof, you need new boilers, so now we're gonna go back and renegotiate to see if we can get the price down, just don't keep it more.
Yeah.
So, because we're like, okay, we're gonna keep it in the inventory, we're gonna do good things with it, you should like help us out. So, but the other piece of it, that's for $2.25 million right now. And the reason that we're renegotiating the price is because we want to make those improvements and really, really keep it as up to snuff as we possibly can. Keep ahead of the maintenance to keep it in the inventory for the long term to serve families. The other $1 million of the capital campaign, this is why we're calling it a combined capital campaign, is to purchase Sherwood House. So Sherwood House, many of you volunteered over there as we were doing that 5-year renovation of it. We did $1 million renovation for a little less than $600,000. Because we had human effort that went into that, all those volunteer hours that we were all painting and sanding and all that stuff. And so we have this, and it's now valued at $3.5 million. But we negotiated a price with the city of Fort Collins for $700,000. So, I know. So we said if we can keep it in the inventory of serving, which is what the neighborhood around it that surrounds the property wanted it to do. When the city of Fort Collins, it used to be Crossroads Safe House, many of you know, and so then then they moved into the big building on Parker over here. And so when they did that, the city of Fort Collins went to the neighborhood and said, what do you want us to do with this property? And the neighborhood, including one of my lovely volunteers from one of my faith communities who's the north neighbor, they said, we want to keep it in the nonprofit inventory. And so they said, okay, so then they went out and talked to all the nonprofits, and the nonprofits said, it's got what to do? You have that much renovation that the city has never done. You have so many new deed restrictions. You have so many more property and zoning issues. Nobody wanted to take it on. So they came to me and I was like, I like a challenge, we could figure this out. So my board walked in and truly Rich Thompson, who many of you know from Interfaith Council, walked in and he said, this house needs families and we need to do this. And he was our board president at the time. And so he was like, and we need you to help me. And I said, okay, we can do this. Because I loved Rich Thompson. So I was like, all right, we'll make it happen. So we went out and raised some money to be able to do it. And Tom Elder from Elder Construction came on board and said, I'll take this on as a retirement project. And so he and I decided to do this, and it was a 5-year project of love that we did, and it opened in 2021, and it continues to serve 7 families at a time. And what it has done for us is a beautiful gift to our community, because Catholic Charities and Family Housing Network, Sherwood House takes all of the more compromised families and lets them live there for up to a year. So it's a bridge housing project that with wraparound support in a co-housing situation. It's 10,000 square feet where they each get suited bedrooms, not unlike our new Myrtle property, and they get suited bedrooms and they share kitchens, they share living rooms and stuff, but they have a case manager who's on site. They have a property manager who lives in an apartment on site. So when they have issues in the overnight hours and the weekends, Joshua and Carolina are there to troubleshoot all that. And then all during the business hours, they've got Stephanie who works on property, and she's able to troubleshoot anything that they come up with. So we have had unexpected blessings come from that property where families who never were expected to reunite out of foster care have reunited. We've reunited 7 families out of foster care. We have helped families who are new to recovery. They have come in just on Wednesday, on the 1st, I have the very first peer support recovery couple who is moving into their own apartment on Wednesday. They've been with me for 2 weeks shy of 1 year. They have taken their baby out of the NICU who was born addicted to drugs. They have found recovery, they've gone through certification, and they today own their own cleaning company named Nina Blue Cleaning, which is their baby's name. And mom has seizures from her extended drug use. She has Betty Mac, who is their Schnauzer ADA certified dog, and they are moving into their own apartment, and it is a volunteer's condo. They have bought 2 cars, they've increased their credit score by 100 points, and they have a $4,000 safety plan in emergency savings. So a year and 2 months ago when I met them, they were addicted to hardcore drugs, had long-term drug addictions. He had just served, he'd gotten out about a year before of an 8-year prison stint for drugs. So today, Khaled and Jessica are like the shining stars. They are just gonna be, I'm gonna miss them terribly at Sherwood House. But we then also, part of our program is that Nikki, our retention and homelessness prevention expert, she will then be going to their house and actually shepherding them for the next year to continue their track of success. So helping them make sure that they have enough in their budget, going through the budget every month, going through and making sure that they are saving enough money, that they're covering all their bills, they're taking care of stuff. Things that come up with the landlord, she can help mediate concerns. They haven't rented a place in their adult life. So they don't even know how to talk to a landlord about a leaky faucet. I'm pretty sure Khaled would think he could fix it. So instead, we're, coach them through that. Like, call your landlord, it's their property, figure this out. But I just was over there last Saturday morning, and Khaled was working on their 2 cars, and and if you see Khaled around town, he is tatted all the way to his hairline, to his fingertips. People are a little scared of the guy. He's this tall, quiet, scary-looking guy, but he is the best father. He is just this amazing person, and he's actually working on the laser removal to get his tattoos on his face removed, because he said, I don't want to walk in and have people think I'm that person anymore. So I just think that's the beauty of Sherwood House, is allowing our community to have a place where people with larger, complex, really huge complications and challenges can go and settle in for a year, figure out where they're going to go next, have some really loving, generous support, and they turn out to be incredible futures, right? So that's really, so that's the other $700,000. So when we're doing 2.25, 700,000, I have a $300,000 extra, because we knew that we needed extra to do the maintenance on these properties. Sherwood House is 2 houses with an extension off the back. One house is 120 years old, the other one's 110 years old, and even though I upgraded everything, I'm telling you, they're old. So I still have dirt floor basements in front of 2 of the houses. Even the renovation that Crossroads put on the back was built in 1992, which is now getting old. So it needs a little bit of love, and so we want to make sure that we maintain these properties, because after we're all gone, we want these properties to continue to serve those who are in need. And if we're really good at what we do, then maybe we won't need them for homelessness, but according to the Bible, we'll probably still be here. So, but we think, and who knows what population it'll need to serve in the future. Maybe they are recovery homes. Maybe I don't know, this community, since I moved here when I was a kid in 1970, it's changed so much that who knows who we're gonna have to serve next. So, but by putting these properties into the inventory to serve, it gives us as a nonprofit the chance to work with the community in a greater capacity and figure out what that means and what we need. So we're so excited. So your $40,000 started the whole ball rolling. So since then, we've now, and thank you for saying that our grant was so nice, because I have this lovely grant writer who works with me too. So she extends my ability to do this stuff. But we've been writing grants like crazy. We've been talking to people. I have 3 board members who have shown up with $25,000 each because of you guys. Because when I went to them and I said, I have one faith community who showed up with $40,000. And they were like, okay, we should do this. Like we should come in with our money too. 3 of them came in with $25,000 apiece. First United Methodist, I talked to them, and they came in at a minimum of $75,000. Pastor Brad took it on as a personal mission, so he's hoping to get 125. So thank you for this seed, this kernel of seed that started the whole thing. Foothills Unitarian, on my 60th birthday on October 11th, we are the beneficient of their fundraiser this year. So we are hoping to make 25 to 50,000 there. So we're just adding. The city of Fort Collins has said that we can come in and ask for 500,000. Oh, wow. So yes, so we just have learned so much since I saw you in June. So Daniel's Fund is going to be coming in. I know some of you know about the Daniel's Fund. So they're going to be coming in, and El Pomar has already made a promise to us. And I have 3 others. I'm like, who are my other 3? But yeah, so people are really starting to come in. And then we have some private donors who are starting to step up and say, okay, hold on, we need to be a part of this as well. So our goal is to raise the 2.25 by next August. And then the other $1 million that's phase 1, and then the other is phase 2, where we'll raise the next $1 million over the next year. 3 weeks ago, I went over there to do my inspections, and Housing Catalyst said, well, can you wait a day? And I said, why? And they said, because the last tenant is moving out. I said, they had a whole year. And she said, I know, but it was a mass exodus. They all decided that if they had to move anyway, they might as well get it over with. So I went over a couple days later, and the building is empty. So then Housing Catalyst said, when would you like to move in? And I was like, oh, I don't have the money. I don't know, I'm not sure. So I just sold, and I also sold the day center property. So we had 2 buyers. Legal Legacy bought Suite 103, and now a gentleman who's gonna open a spa, he bought 105. And so we have some extra operating reserves as well for the first time in our little agency's history. We have $600,000 in the bank to sort of cushion this as well. So we're in really good space. The blessings keep coming, and we just keep going, okay, what does this look like? But we had just signed a 1-year lease on our day center to lease it back to us. So now we're talking to our new landlord about, can we get out of it early? So we're really hoping he will say yes here in the next week or so, and we will be able to maybe move into the property into 811 East Myrtle in January and start our new year's rotation over there. So, because we know it's becoming ever increasingly difficult to host in our faith communities. They're just doing so many more things. And the restrictions of the Poudre Fire Authority have just become a burden. So it's just too much. So, okay, are there any questions I haven't answered? Yeah.
The day shelter will move to East Myrtle?
Yeah.
Okay. And then can Housing Catalyst rent you the space with the intent to purchase?
Yeah, they want to rent us the space and just let us cover the bills.
Right. For the cost of
Yeah.
running the
Electricity and water.
And I have to tell you, their bills are not expensive at all compared to my current day center. The actual monthly bills are less than my HOA bill was.
Oh, really?
I'm like, these are all the bills? Are you sure? Are you sure about this? They're like, yeah, those are all the bills. I'm like, great, I'll totally take that. Yeah, it's a very affordable option. It will actually save us $2,500 a month to move over there. So that's why we would love to be able to move over there, because every dollar we save on a building, we will put back into services. So, come on. You know, stranger things have happened in my time with Family Housing Network, so I'm like, okay, might as well ask. You never know. Because Eric, our new landlord, he might very well say to me, go, be free. He's going through planning and zoning right now to put in a spa, so I know that would give him a chance to maybe start, construction sooner. And I know that he's gonna make a lot more than $5,000 a month off of this business, otherwise he wouldn't do it. So I'm like, well, maybe that will be incentivizing to do it.
Can you talk a little bit about how people find work? Because we certainly read about layoffs and so on. So what kind of work and how do they go about finding that work and hopefully making it last?
So one of the things that we do is from the moment that we meet from the time that they call in. So there's a couple key pieces that we require. So I was covering the front desk this week, and I'll explain why this is important, because I was covering the front desk and I had a school counselor call me this week, and she said, I have this family and I would like to refer them to you. And I said, that's not how this works. So she said, I said, are they with you right now? And she said, yes. I said, can you pass the phone? He was like, oh, yeah, okay. So then the dad got on the phone and I said, hi, I'm Annette with Family Housing Network. This is how we do this and this is why. And so I said, I don't take referrals from case managers. I take referrals from families because my agreement is with you. And he was like, okay. And I said, so do you have children under the age of 18 and before high school graduation? He said, yes. I said, are you literally homeless? He said, what? I said, okay, so where are you staying right now? He said, in our car. And I said, okay, done, check. And then I said, are you willing to make progress towards housing? He said, well, yeah. I said, okay, great. So then I asked him, I went through our pre-screen assessment, and what I did was just basically gather. I'd already gathered that he's calling from Riffenburg School, and so then I just asked him, so what is your name, what is your phone number, what's your contact information, tell me why you're calling today, what is this? So that then my case manager walks in a little bit prepped, into the situation, so then she can already be thinking. So I asked, do you have a car? What condition is it in? Do you have a pet? Do I need to help you rehome this? Or do I need to find a foster for you? Just some basic sort of sheltering questions. But he told me his whole thing, he's a family of 7. So, so I gathered his information, and then I set him up with an intake with Angela. But the difference in us and other agencies is he had to make the reach out to me. He had to make the agreement with me so that he would show up. Because when I used to let case managers set these appointments up, I would have 75% no-show rates. People wouldn't show up, and then I had a staff member who was like, well, 5 people didn't show up for me today. And I was like, well, I'm paying you to do what? Like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't a good use of time. And then I realized that the missing piece of the puzzle was the buy-in from the family. The family has to be bought into at least making a call or talking to us about this. And if they can make and so in that little pre-screen assessment call, we're starting that trusted relationship that we're gonna build on. Because you asked me how they find a job, because the trusted relationship says that they have to. So they come to us, we help them build a resume. We say, what have you done in the past? Who do we know? Like sometimes I reach out to my coordinators and I'm like, so-and-so needs a job. Who knows somebody in plumbing? Who knows somebody over here? We reach out to different partners and we say, okay, so we have a mom who does this, this, or this. We then hook them up with a workforce coach. So are they on benefits? Are they getting TANF or SNAP or Medicaid? So then we give them access to a workforce coach through that. So then they have a team of people, a network of people who are working for them to then do that. So within their first week, we're talking to them. And first off, the very first thing we do is stabilize kids. So we do the intake and then we're like, okay, you got 5 kids, where are they at? What are they doing? So, oh, they're not in school yet. They should be. Okay, so while we're here, let's call our friend Elena over at McKinney-Vento at Poudre School District. Let's connect those kids with school. Let's get them to school. Oh, by the way, we have all your stuff for your backpack. We're gonna run the clothing closet. We also had a donor who gave us all the socks that we needed for back to school. We have all clean underwear for kids. So and then we can run over to the clothing closet and pick up some shoes and an outfit. And so by day 2, the kid is in school. So then that allows the parents to go, okay, kids are safe. They're good. I can now go.
All 5.
Yeah, all 5. Or, do we need daycare? What do we need to do with this? So then, but then we know that then the parent's brain can go, calm down. And if we can get them into shelter with us or Catholic Charities, then we know that they can sleep. So food, safety, shelters taken care of. We know we're gonna feed them. We know we're gonna make them safe. We're gonna shelter them and give them some sleep. And then we can go, okay, so how about a job? How about income? And we don't talk about budget until we know, like, they say, okay, I've always been in fast food. Okay, so we know that's a low income wage earner that we're gonna have to already start looking for a subsidized unit probably. We're going to have to start looking for those low income rentals that we may have to move kind of quick. But we have landlords who will take a promise, a letter of intent for someone to go to work and be able to do that. We have a partner in Homeward Alliance that will help us with deposit money and first month's rent. So we'll, then call our friend Anna and say, okay, so they've worked 2 weeks, they have their first paycheck coming, and we know that their income substantiates enough to be able to move into this. Can you come in and put the pieces together? So we just sort of piece it together with our network of folk.
Wow.
But I will say, but if we have a family who by day 30 is still putting up roadblocks to income and employment, then we have the hard conversation of, so is this for you? Like, are you supposed to be here? Like, is this what you want to do? Because there is, and I'm sure Lyle can just tell us all day long about this, there is no special magical potions and mystery there's nobody who's gonna pay your rent, there's no mystery vouchers out there, there's no place that's gonna give you a rental, that we just don't have that in our communities. We don't have a magical, tree of vouchers that you can then go pull this off the tree and then go to the landlord and say, we're gonna move in here. That doesn't happen in our community, it happens with income. So, sometimes we're parsing together income that, many times we have a lot of children who have a disability. So they might be getting some SSI for their child. They might be getting child support. They might be getting all sorts of different pieces of income that they could put together. We just put those things together, we run their credit reports, we do a portable screening tool if we need to see what's gonna show up on their screening tools. In the past 3 years, we've seen more and more people coming to us with an eviction and owing back landlord debt. They have to start making payment plans to those back landlords before they can ever apply. So we need a job right away so that they can make a couple payments on that and then we can start applying for housing. Cause there is no, there's nobody who's gonna come in and cover their debt anymore, there's nobody who's going to, wash away their addictions, that just doesn't happen anymore. So we just saw the first family with 3 evictions, and they owed $38,000 to all these different families. And I was like, whew, okay, we're gonna move you to Sherwood and figure out the next year. Cause I don't really have a notion about how to crawl out of that yet.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. So we actually have arranged for them to meet with a lawyer. Do they need to file bankruptcy? What does this look like? Like, this is beyond the capacity of a family with 3 little kids. But also, those are indicators for us to go, okay, so how did that happen over the past 5 years? So when we started asking the question, we realized that both the parents were, we went through their bank statements and we saw that they were buying $200 worth of alcohol every 3rd day.
Oh, jeez.
So while they looked, on the all appearances, they looked well functioning, they didn't smell, they didn't do anything, but they both really needed recovery. So then we need to figure that out too. So 40% of our families present and say that they have some sort of chronic health condition. So then what does that look like? Does that impair their ability to work? They have mental health disorders. So then how do we stabilize those things so that we can then get them compliant with medication or with some support and help? So, and that's really why Sherwood House has been super important for the folks who have more severe mental illnesses to go over there and get some support there. And in all of our programs, their providers can come to the sites and meet with them there, if that's easier for them. Our case managers are all roving, they can go wherever they need to go to meet with a family and go to court with them or do whatever, so. Really, we think that that's what trauma-informed care looks like, is going to where the family needs us to be, to support them in the capacity that they require.
I think you've hit on it, but when somebody graduates, moves out, how long do you track them?
For a whole year.
A whole year?
Or longer if they need. I have 2 moms right now, one has a chronic health condition, and which when she got to us, we had no idea about, because she looked very, very mobile. And then all of a sudden she was at the hospital every week, and we were like, what's going on? And it turns out that she hasn't been able to keep a job for any length of time for the past 4 years, because she has a lung condition, a heart condition, and she is a not very well managed type 1 diabetic. But so we are still shepherding her 18 months later.
And how do you track them?
We go to their house. I should say, I had a partner one time who called me and said, we had 100% retention of all of our households in 1 year up until a year ago, August. And I was like, and I had partners who called me and said, how do you know that your family still live in those houses? I said, well, I have their leases and my retention case manager goes to their house every month. And they're like, she goes to their house, and I said, to their house. I know where they live, I can tell you their neighborhood, I can tell you their apartment. And she goes to their house and she goes through their budget and she says, where's your checking and savings account statements? She verifies everything that they're telling us that they're doing with their money. So then we're checking on them and we're showing up, and that's why then, if, like, just recently we had a child protection call us and said, there's a case opening up on this family that you guys have been working with for almost 2 years. And Nikki said, she said, well, the report is that there's no food in the house. She goes, what? What are you talking about? She goes, I just graduated them out of my program a month ago, and the case manager said, well, but we got reports that there's no food in the house. And she's like, those children are eating every time I'm there. What are you talking about? And she goes, well, did you ever check the fridge? And she said, I didn't have to, there was food on the countertops. So she said, no, I saw the house. Every single month I went there and I saw the house. Well, when did you last see it? She said, 4 weeks ago. So they were like, okay, well, we're gonna go out and investigate. And they called her back and they said, you're right, there was a lot of food in the house. So it was a teenager who made a call on their parents because they didn't like the rules. So we were like, yeah, that's just not true. So they're at the house, like, and that's really also troubleshooting issues. Like, we had her walk in on a single dad who'd never managed his own tenant-landlord relationship before. And he had a bucket, he had the cupboard underneath the sink, and he had a bucket under there, and she said, do you have a leak? And he said, well, yeah, I just have to change out the bucket every morning. She said, have you thought to call the landlord, the property manager? And he was like, well, no, I'll get to it sometime. And she was like, not yours to get to. Why don't we just let's call Kristen right now, let's figure this out. And I just remember Blake standing there and going, and she was like, he was so like mesmerized by, you just call and magically they come fix it. She was like, yeah, you're a tenant, you don't own it. He was like, oh, that's how that works. She was like, yeah. So, but he had no idea, like he's divorced, his wife used to do that all the time, and things magically happened. And he just didn't know how that worked as a single dad now. So it's sort of funny, another single dad, she walked in and she saw a Rottweiler sitting on the couch. And she said, oh, there's a new family member, did you add him to the lease? And he was like, what lease? She said, your housing lease? He goes, he can't sign his name, what are you talking about? She was like, doesn't matter, the dog has to be on the lease. And there's a dog deposit and there's dog rent. And the dad was like, wow, like he had no idea that this was gonna be so much trouble when I got to this dog. And she was like, so let's walk him over and introduce him to the property manager and see what they say. And he was like, that's all you gotta do? She's like, yeah, it's pretty simple. And then write a check. And he was like, wow, that's, okay, sure. But they just have lost their ability to sort of think through those little nuances sometimes. So Nikki shows up and she just does that. And so she also uncovers things in their budgets that they save things like, oh yeah, I'm saving $200 a month, and then their savings account doesn't show it, their checking account doesn't show it. And then she's like, okay, so let's go through line by line where your thing is. And with one parent, she found that they really liked convenience stores, and they had 42 transactions in 1 month at convenience stores. And she said, and he was asking, the mom and dad were asking for rental assistance support, because we have a little pot of money from the state that we can then help out the families that engage with us. And so he was like, I'm $800 short on my rent this month. And she said, so let's go through your checking account this month and see where that was. And then she just did a little tally, and she was like, 42 stops at convenience stores, $5, $7, $12. She was like, well, that's your rent right there. And he was like, I couldn't figure out where it went. And we all know, it's really easy, right, to buy a coffee, to get a soda, and the money just dribbles out of our wallets like crazy. But, and when they're working and they're so excited to have money in their pocket that sometimes they just need to have a little guidance, some little bumper cars. And that's what Nikki does. And so they can ask to go longer. Now, when we excuse them and say, okay, we're gonna close you out of our program, call us if you need us, call us. So a year ago last August, when I had 100% success rate in sustaining housing at 13 months, which means that they signed another year renewal at 12 months and they're staying where they are, I had 2 dads show up at the day center and said, hey, can we just get like 2 weeks of access? You know, I'm between my rentals and I'm staying with friends for 2 weeks. And I was like, why? Well, Nikki called us and she said she was gonna help us, but we were kind of busy, you know, with thinking about moving out and looking at new places and stuff. And truly, they were like 10 days apart. They both walked in with their kids and said, well, we're only gonna be here for 2 weeks. It's not that big a deal, Annette. And I said, why are you here? Why, like, other people have, you move out on the 31st, you move in on the 31st. You know, we don't have breaks in housing. Other people think of these things. And they're both like, oh, yeah, that would've been good, huh? Yeah, that would've been good, huh? So yeah, we were like, let's not do that again. So this year, we called those 2 dads again and said, hey, are you signing up for another year? Are you switching locations? Do you have a location that's gonna like seamlessly cross over this one? And they both said, we're both re-signing, it's too much work to move. I said, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Cause I said, that's what other people do, you know, they don't have a family housing network, you know, safety hatch. I was like, stop, I don't want to hear safety hatch, please don't make me.
Do they get coaching on how to save money on purchasing things?
Yeah, so like our biggest purchases are usually cars because they've run their cars into the ground.
Yeah.
But we've
I'm
had,
thinking of day-to-day, going to the grocery store, and establishing a checking account, a savings account, how to do all those things.
so when they first come to us, in order, when they're getting a job, they're also opening up some sort of a checking account.
Good.
Because then that allows direct deposits, it allows all those things to start flooding in. And we start budgeting from the moment they get the job, because then we have real money. So, okay, Pete, you're gonna make $20 an hour. You're gonna work full-time. That's what your letter of intent from your employer says. So this means that this is how we're gonna allocate your money. This is where it's gonna go. So you gotta go this much to debt, this much to food, this much to this. So then we already start talking about budgeting, and then when they get their first paycheck, then we go, okay, so then let's start allocating our money. Like, let's start paying bills, you know, let's start doing this. And they sit in Angela's office and they do that right there.
The reason why I'm asking that is because in Chicago, where we lived in the Chicago area, I was on a board for homeless people. And that's one of the things that they were homeless, but they were working, so they got income. But they didn't know how to spend the money. And they would waste a lot of it. And even going to the grocery store and how to buy things, and where the least expensive things are, they're on the bottom shelf.
Yeah.
Not here, at eye level, those little kinds of bits of information.
Yeah, Nikki has even done, so she used to be for almost a decade, she was a child protection worker. So she knows what to look for in their houses and stuff, but when she also goes in, she even talks to them about like meal planning. Okay, let's look at your schedule with your kids' school schedules and stuff. These are the nights that you need quick, on the go. You don't wanna run through McDonald's, because McDonald's can cost $40 for a family nowadays. So she's like, okay, and so she and I just talked through like, okay, so when I raised my kids who are now adults, there was a Girl Scout, Boy Scout night, I'll just tell you, it was grilled cheese and soup night, like, we had 20 minutes. We had to like knock it out from the time that we hit the door, came in the garage, we were like, we have 20 minutes to be able to like be finishing up our meal, loading the dishes in the dishwasher and running back out the door. So we were like, okay, so Tuesday nights, that was usually Scout night, we always had like that quick, we knew that was what it was. And so she coaches them through like meal planning of that, and then it's easy to shop for meal planning like that. And what we have learned so much from our overnight program is, as lovely as we as adults who don't have small children like fancy meals, children don't like fancy meals. They don't like weird sauces, they don't like weird flavors, they don't really like ginger. They really don't like a lot of things, right? So we work with families with kids, so we can talk about like really easy food prep things and what does that look like. And so like one family, they really like fried foods, but it took a lot of time. We saw at the day center that they would spend hours and hours and hours cooking and cooking and cooking. So our answer to them was, let's buy an air fryer at the day center and teach them how to air fry everything because it's quicker. So then when they moved into housing, one of their first purchases was an air fryer. Because that was a quick food for their little people, right? And they had kids who really only like chicken tenders, chicken nuggets, chicken anything. So it was like, that was super simple for them. And so we talked through those sorts of things, like it's your family, so you and your little crazy kids, you can figure out what you're gonna do, but let's figure out how to do it affordably, let's figure out how to do this sustainably. And then create, Nikki's great, she's got 2 kids herself, so she's like, okay, then create the shopping list. Like every single week your shopping list, put it in your phone, figure this out, look for coupons, do all this stuff. So she, that's all part of budget planning when they move into housing. And we start to see that in the overnight program. In the overnight program, we can see who has really fancy tastes that we're gonna have to tone it back and who doesn't. We had a dad who had been a chef and he was like, I wanna do a seafood gumbo. And I was like, brother, we can't afford seafood gumbos. So I was like, okay. And I said, you can do it one Saturday and make it a big bang up deal for everybody. But that's not something that we can, that's a special treat. And then, we get to treat ourselves sometimes too. And that's all part of budgeting, right? But most of the time, you're not gonna get to do a big, wonderful seafood gumbo every night at your house, even though you love it, you can't afford it. So, because we live in Colorado. So we just, we talk about that. We also talk through things like, we have some people who love to fish. So then we've had, then they sort of help each other with fish recipes and stuff, and how do you cook fish, and what do you do? And it's part of their family culture that they like to go fishing together and do that kind of stuff. Well, it's free food, It's like, okay, that'll work too. We don't do a lot of instant rices and stuff. They do rice from scratch, so we have rice cookers. Like buy a $15 rice cooker from Amazon and cook your family rice if you love it. And, do sustainably things that you can afford. So we talk through all those, and that's why we talk about cars a lot, because we want cars that are easily fixed. We like cars that are not, they don't cost a fortune to maintain, and then we sort of help put together the maintenance and all that kind of stuff. We have some great partners with R12, which is a group that they'll help us with some bigger repairs. They take 2 repairs a month for us, so we can keep those cars on the road. We've got some great partners who will do oil changes and teach them how to do their oil changes. And, that's awesome. So, we just, however we can make life as a low income wage earner sustainable and better so that we don't run up a bunch of credit cards, that'd be best.
Well, and I think one of the cool things too is you involve the community. You have friends everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, half of the things she said, we have a partner, we have a partner. And that's, that makes our community better for everyone.
So how will the, you know, when we did the overnight cooking, how will that change?
It won't, it just be at one place.
Just-
Yeah, you now go to Christ United Methodist, you'll come to us,
Okay,
that's it.
just a change of location.
Just like when we were at Foothills Unitarian Church, those 14 months. You'll have the kitchen, you'll come in and you'll cook in the kitchen.
Perfect.
Yeah, it won't feel that different to you.
Okay.
Yeah, good. And there's host rooms that for the overnight hosts, they will have allocated host rooms that will be just for volunteers. And you know, the great thing is, the beauty of 811 East Myrtle is, how many of you are on the tear down setup crew? It won't happen anymore.
Yeah.
It'll be done. It'll be just done. Won't that be so great? So, and we're gonna do real beds, so the families sleep in a bed, not on a mattress on the floor.
And so on our rotation, we'll do laundry instead of putting it in a thing,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
And you know, and you know, that might even become, this is part of why I'm asking, we're gonna do the stakeholder task force. And if you are interested in helping us sort of develop the philosophy and policies around this, we would love your insight, because maybe we don't do laundry anymore. Maybe we just do host laundry. Maybe the host room laundry is the only laundry we have to do, and maybe the families become responsible for their own.
Their own sheets
Yeah.
and towels.
Maybe they do that, because we're gonna have a lot of sheets and towels each week, so maybe they should do them themselves. And what a better way to sort of get on top of that for yourself too, you know? And I think it's your room, it's your bed, you should probably wash your sheets. So, and over at Sherwood House, I have Realities for Children, gives me some money every year. And so I'm just gonna ask Realities for a little bit more money. And what at Sherwood House we do is, we buy, I don't know who's on their Wayfair's hot list to get their sales and stuff. I get them all the time. So I just bought 12 more sets of, you know, bed-in-a-bags for 80% off from Wayfair. And so Realities for Children pays for those over at Sherwood. When a family moves in, they get to pick their bedding, and then they get to wash their bedding, and then they get to move out with their bedding. And so when they move into housing, they have the bedding that they've been sleeping in for the past year. And so they get to actually keep that bedding, and that very well might be what we do. I don't know, like, I'm open for suggestions.
Sounds like good.
You know, because for $24, I can get a bed in a bag. And on sale, so I'm just like, okay, then wash it, care for it, love it like your own, and then move with it. And then the next family gets to have that dignity and feel special by moving in and taking, you know, getting their own stuff. So I'm like, I'm willing to ask Craig and his team at Realities for Children for a little extra money to pay for that. So, what other questions?
What capacity, if you could meet the need that presents itself, what capacity would you have for the temporary shelter and then the longer-term bridge housing? Would it be 28 units of each, or 14 units of each, or, because you have 7 of each? What would the capacity be if you could meet the need?
I don't know, because the need changes every single day.
Well, just think
It's just
over time.
over time. We probably could use yet another,
A third house.
yeah, I could use a third house. It could
That would
probably
be,
do 7 or 8 more units.
A mix between the two kinds of housing
Yeah.
or shelter.
Yeah, I think that, because Catholic Charities is doing a really good job. Their residential they do 8 units of residential for up to 4 months. And that really works for those who join into that. So I think if we were to have another 7 or 8 units of, I don't know, like 6-month housing. I know that's kind of a weird thing, because we have, you know, we do 3 to 4 months, but we have some people who take a little longer to get traction. And I'm usually flipping them over to Sherwood House, or they're staying at Catholic Charities a month or 2 extra. But what we see, so there is, we call it the cycle of shelter life in our world. The first month is hard, it's really hard, it's hard to live together, it's hard to like other people's children, it's hard to like other people's food, it's just hard. It's hard to like us, you know, they want to pick apart the rules, it's just hard. And then the 3rd month, they get into a groove in the 2nd month, and this is usually when I get reports from all of you as volunteers who say, they were delightful. And I'm like, I know, they were good. I had 30 minutes. And then the last month, they're sick of us. They're sick of Angela, she's so in their business. their boss is already in their business every day, the teachers are in their business, and now we're asking about their budget again, and now they're getting denials from housing applications, and it's just hard. So there's some of them that stay in that good space for a little longer than they need to, but then they really do need like a 6-month program. And so I flipped them to Sherwood House many times, and that's how I they don't stay very long, they really need 6 to 7 months, and then they pop out, and then I have the 12-monthers. So if I had kind of a program that could last 4 to 5, 6 months, in a, probably an 8 an 8 family unit, that'd probably be fill in the gap for all of us. If I were to like dream it out.
Yeah.
Another question, it looks like, to me, there's gonna be overbuilding of apartment houses.
Yeah.
So is this something
Yeah.
that could possibly be of interest to you? And if so, does that work in your whole system of the way you do things?
I'm not a housing provider. That's a whole different skill set. So I would think that probably not us, but probably Housing Catalyst. I would love for them to take some of those and turn them into permanent supportive housing for families. That's really the need that we have in this community. Families with a disability, family with severe mental illness, to do an apartment complex for all those who have hardcore drug addictions that have a recovery house for families with kids would be amazing. With some shared space in the bottom where they could do meetings and stuff like that. That's a dream of mine. I would absolutely love that. I would love permanent supportive housing for those who are dealing with a horrible disability that they're getting denied SSDI, for 4 to 5 times because their disability doesn't look as bad as it really is. So and anybody who has a long-term drug addiction is being denied disability, even though their disability might have turned into seizure disorders, and they cannot work because they have, unless they lose a limb from their drug addiction, they're really not being approved at all. Jessica Khaled, her long-term drug addiction, she has no teeth. She's 34 years old, she has no teeth. And she has a seizure disorder that she takes medication every single day. And she's been denied 4 times. And the lawyer told her, don't bother applying, you're never gonna get approved. I have another young man over at Sherwood House that has a severe heart condition because of his drug abuse. And the lawyer told him, you've been denied 3 times, you'll never get it. So permanent supportive housing for those sorts of families who need a unit that is based on 30% of whatever they can bring to the table. That they could pay a little bit of rent, but have a supported environment. So if Anthony were to have a heart attack, and have a cardiac event with his children, that he would have someone to hit the button and call. Because that's probably his future.
How likely is that though?
Okay, I'm not ever gonna say unlikely, because I say to Housing Catalyst, how to use PSH for families every day. So, I would love that. I think Housing Catalyst, if they can go after money to get permanent supportive housing for families, they will. In this political environment, I don't see it happening in the next 3.5 to 5 years. I think it's gonna take real huge public will change to do that. But I don't know, we can start with one and we can make it successful.
And you're doing amazing things, so.
Yeah, but and PSH looks really different than what we do. We are a front line, and so the next line is those who really need more than I can offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You make this exciting.